Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast, where we kind of explore the ideas that really make you think, huh, interesting. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of this really influential 12th century Sufi master, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Gilani.
Yes.
We're going to be looking at the Malfuzat, which is like this fascinating collection of his utterances. It's basically like a treasure trove of his teachings.
It is. I'm like having a direct line to his wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a privilege to explore these utterances. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Gilani's insights are so relevant even today, like they were centuries ago. He had this incredible ability to bridge that gap, between like those profound spiritual truths and everyday life, making the teachings very accessible and deeply impactful.
Yeah, what strikes me is how he blends Islamic scholarship, with that experiential wisdom of Sufism. Like he's saying, come on, understand, the tenets of Islam, but also feel them in your heart,
Precisely.
really experience them.
Yeah. He doesn't just tell us what to believe.
Yeah.
He shows us, how to embody those beliefs in our thoughts, our actions, our very being.
Yeah.
And he does it with such vivid imagery and captivating storytelling.
Okay, let's jump right in. I'm curious about the overarching themes that emerge from these Malfuzat. What are the recurring ideas that stand out to you?
One of the most prominent themes is the absolute primacy of Allah.
Okay.
And this isn't just some theological concept, it's a lived reality for the Sheikh.
Right.
And he emphasizes the importance of recognizing Allah's presence in every aspect of our lives, from the grand scheme of the cosmos to the details of our daily existence.
So it's about cultivating a constant awareness of Allah.
Right.
Not just remembering him during prayer, but seeing his hand and everything around us.
Exactly. And, this awareness leads to a deep sense of reliance on Allah, what we call tawakkul.
Right.
It's about surrendering our anxieties and worries, knowing that ultimately everything is in his hands.
There's this beautiful anecdote about the Sheikh's own son asking, what's the best thing a servant could possess? And the Sheikh replies, oh, my dear son, Allah is the only one you need. He goes on to say, do not concern yourself with any other. He is the one who owns this entire universe, the one from whom all sustenance comes, the one who brings both good and bad.
Right.
It's like a powerful reminder that our true wealth lies in our relationship with the divine, not in accumulating worldly possessions or accolades.
It's a perspective shift, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Sheikh is essentially saying, look beyond the superficial, beyond the fleeting pleasures and anxieties of this world. Your true treasure is your connection with Allah. And when we cultivate that connection, when we place our trust in him, we find a peace that the world cannot give.
And that peace, that contentment, comes from recognizing that we are ultimately guests in this world, entrusted with a purpose that extends beyond our individual desires. It's like realizing that our journey here is part of a much grander narrative, a cosmic tapestry woven by the divine hand.
Absolutely. And within this grand tapestry, the Sheikh emphasizes the importance of knowledge,
Right.
both the outward knowledge of Islamic law, represented by hukam, and the inward knowledge gained through spiritual purification and gnosis,
Right.
what we call ilm.
So it's about finding a balance between the external practice and the internal state.
Yes.
Ensuring that our outward actions are a reflection of a purified heart.
Precisely. There's this powerful image where the Sheikh warns against those who dress in the garb of piety but whose hearts are far from Allah. He says, one of you may dress up in the apparel of the righteous in gray and coarse wool, yet in our eyes he is an unbeliever.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder that true righteousness isn't about outward appearances, but about aligning our inner state with our outward actions.
But isn't there a danger in judging others' hearts? How can we discern the true state of another person's inner being?
That's where the concept of nifaq or hypocrisy comes into play. The Sheikh cautions against cultivating a facade of piety while harboring insincerity in our hearts. He reminds us that Allah sees not only our actions but also the intentions behind them. And ultimately, it's our own hearts that we must focus on purifying.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a call to self-reflection, to examine our own motivations and ensure that our actions are rooted in sincerity, in a genuine desire to please Allah.
And this process of purification, of bridging the gap between outward and inward, is a journey.
Yeah.
It's not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing process of refinement.
And this journey takes us from the mundane to the spiritual, from earning lawfully to nourishing our souls with the understanding of divine truths and tapping into our creative potential.
Yes, and it's not always easy.
Right.
There are doubts, challenges, moments of confusion along the way, but even in those moments, there's an opportunity for growth. There's a story about the companions of the great Sufi master Al-Junaid. They were grappling with a core.
Oh, a core. So kind of intuitive insight or inspiration.
Exactly, and they were unsure of its validity. So what did Al-Junaid do?
Hmm.
He tested the purity and steadfastness of their hearts, challenging their understanding before confirming the authenticity of their experience.
Interesting.
It's a reminder that even spiritual insights need to be grounded in sincerity and tested against the touchstone of knowledge.
Speaking of testing and refinement, the Sheikh uses this analogy of a touchstone, the kind used to test the purity of gold.
Right.
He says we must rub our hearts against the touchstones of the Quran and the Sunnah, the Prophet's traditions.
It's about aligning our desires, our loves and hates with the divine principles revealed through Scripture and the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him.
Yeah.
It's about asking ourselves, are my motivations in line with what Allah loves? Am I striving to embody the prophetic character?
And through this process of purification, of aligning ourselves with the divine, we come closer to Allah, we gain knowledge, and we develop the ability to discern truth from falsehood.
Precisely. It's like our spiritual vision becomes clearer. We're no longer blinded by the illusions of the ego, the desires of the lower self. We begin to see the world through the lens of divine wisdom.
I imagine that clarity brings a sense of liberation, a freedom from the anxieties and attachments that weigh us down.
Yes, and it leads to a state of profound contentment. The Sheikh says, when the heart puts the book and the sunnah into practice, it draws near to the Lord. When it draws near, it gets to know, and when it knows, it recognizes what is due to it and what is required of it, what is due to the truth and what to falsehood, what is due to Satan and what to the All-Merciful.
But isn't striving for paradise a natural desire? I'm curious how the Sheikh reconciles that with his teachings on detachment.
He actually cautions against those who focus solely on the pursuit of paradise as a reward, saying that this very desire, if rooted in ego and self-interest, can keep them from Allah. He reminds us that our ultimate goal is to purify our hearts, to draw closer to Allah for His sake, not for the rewards we might receive.
So it's about purifying our intentions, recognizing that our desire for paradise, for closeness to Allah, shouldn't be driven by fear or a desire for reward, but by pure love and devotion.
Exactly, and this is where the importance of introspection and self-awareness comes in this way. Sheikh relentlessly warns against the dangers of indulging the appetites of the flesh, the desires of the lower self.
I remember the striking passage where he says, indulging the appetites of the flesh will harden the heart, restrict the innermost being, eliminate keen intelligence, cause an increase in sleepiness and negligence, intensify greed, and extend expectations.
It's a potent reminder that our actions have consequences not just in this world, but in shaping our spiritual state. Each act of indulgence, of succumbing to our lower desires, hardens our hearts and takes us further from the divine.
So how do we soften our hearts? How do we counteract this tendency towards indulgence?
The Sheikh offers a powerful practice, dhikr, the remembrance of Allah. It's more than just a ritual. It's a practice that can transform the heart, leading to profound spiritual experiences. These experiences can encompass states of awe and majesty, known as jalal, as well as those of beauty and intimacy, known as jamal, ultimately leading to a state of spiritual ecstasy called wad.
It sounds like dhikr is a key to unlocking the treasures of the heart. A way to cultivate that deep connection with the divine. I'm curious to hear more about the specifics of this practice, perhaps in our next segment.
Absolutely. Dhikr is a multifaceted practice with profound implications for the spiritual seeker. I'm happy to delve deeper into its nuances and share some insights from the Sheikh's teachings.
That sounds fascinating. I'm eager to hear more.
As we kind of delve deeper into these Malfuzats, right, I'm struck by how Sheikh Abdul Qadir Gilani guides us to approach, our spiritual practice not as a rigid set of rules,
Right.
but as a dynamic process of growth and transformation. He constantly emphasizes the need to go beyond, those outward forms and connect with the inner essence of our faith.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up, in the rituals and forget the deeper purpose behind them. It's like he's reminding us that true spirituality is about cultivating a state of heart, a way of being that permeates every aspect of our lives.
Concisely. And this inward journey, this cultivation of the heart, is deeply intertwined with the practice of dhikr.
Okay.
The Sheikh describes it as a way to polish the mirror of the heart, to remove the veils that obscure our vision of the divine.
So it's not just about reciting certain phrases or formulas.
Right.
It's about using those phrases as a means to connect with Allah, to awaken the heart, to cultivate a state of presence and awareness.
Exactly. And this practice of dhikr can lead to profound spiritual experiences. The Sheikh talks about how the remembrance of Allah can evoke experiences of both divine majesty, Jalal,
Right.
and divine beauty, Jamal, keeping the heart in a state of wad or spiritual ecstasy. He uses the analogy of a lover constantly remembering their beloved. He says, just as the lover finds joy in simply thinking of their beloved, so too does the believer find solace and delight in the remembrance of Allah.
I love that analogy. It makes this abstract concept of dhikr so much more relatable.
Right.
It's like he's saying that our relationship with Allah should be one of love, of longing, of constant remembrance, not of obligation, but out of a genuine desire for closeness.
And this closeness, this intimacy with the divine is what sustains us as we navigate the complexities of worldly existence. Remember how the Sheikh describes this world as a prison for the believer?
Yeah.
He reminds us that it is through taqwa, through dutiful devotion, that we can be liberated from this prison. He even quotes the Quran saying, whoever is dutiful toward Allah, he prepares a way out for him and provides for him from sources he could never imagine.
It's a beautiful reminder that we're not alone in this journey. You know, when we align our lives with the divine, will we open ourselves to a flow of support and guidance that transcends our limited understanding? But how do we actually cultivate this taqwa? What does it look like in practice?
Taqwa isn't about withdrawing from the world or renouncing our responsibilities. It's about living in this world with a heart tethered to the divine, navigating our choices and actions with awareness of our ultimate purpose. It's about bringing the sacred into the mundane, imbuing every aspect of our lives with the remembrance of Allah.
So it's not just about what we do, but also about how we do it right. It's about bringing that awareness, that intentionality to everything from our interactions with others to the way we approach our work, even the way we eat and sleep.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach to life, a way of being that permeates every thought, word, and deed, and it's not always easy.
Right.
The Sheikh is very real about the challenges we face on this path. He talks about the need for strength and resilience, the importance of confronting our own weaknesses and attachments.
There's that line where he says, "Oh, stupid fool, all you have to offer is a flash of lightning with no staying power." It's a stark reminder that our ego-driven efforts, those fleeting bursts of motivation, aren't enough to sustain us on this path.
Exactly. We need to build a spiritual foundation that can withstand the storms of life, the temptations and distractions that inevitably come our way. And this is where the practice of dhikr comes in again, as a way to anchor our hearts to remind ourselves of what truly matters.
It's like that constant remembrance acts as a shield, protecting us from the negative influences that can derail our spiritual progress.
Precisely. And as we cultivate this inner strength, this resilience, we begin to experience a shift in our relationship to the world.
Okay.
We become less reactive, less caught up in the ups and downs of life. We develop a sense of equanimity, a peace that transcends our circumstances.
The Shaykh mentions the practice of khalwa, or solitary retreat, as a way to deepen this connection with the divine.
Right.
I imagine it's a powerful way to disconnect from the distractions of daily life and turn inward to create space for reflection and contemplation.
Khalwa is an incredibly powerful practice. It's about creating a sacred space where we can be alone with Allah, where we can strip away the layers of pretense and ego and connect with our true selves, the selves that are already in a state of union with the divine. He even uses this beautiful imagery saying, "You must leave your passions behind at the door of your private retreat, then go in all by yourself. You will get to see your friendly companion inside your private space."
There's something so profound about that idea of meeting our true selves in solitude, encountering the divine presence within. It's like we're stripping away all the external distractions and connecting with the essence of who we are. But I imagine it's not always a comfortable process facing ourselves. Our own shadows can be quite challenging.
It can be, absolutely. But it's in those moments of vulnerability, of raw honesty, that we often experience the greatest breakthroughs. The Sheikh stresses that true spiritual growth requires courage, a willingness to confront our own weaknesses and limitations. He even says, you need to fade away and die 1,000 times, and at last you will stand firm.
There's that theme of death again. He seems to be emphasizing the need to let go of our ego, of our attachments, as a way to truly come alive in a spiritual sense.
Exactly. It's about surrendering to a power greater than ourselves, recognizing that we are not in control. And in that surrender, we find a freedom that we could never have imagined.
And this freedom, this liberation from the tyranny of the ego, allows us to see the world through new eyes. The Sheikh talks about how our perception shifts as we progress on this path.
He mentions that in the beginning of our spiritual journey, our outward cheerfulness might mask an inner sadness, a grief for the state of the world, the suffering we witness around us. But as we advance spiritually, as we deepen our connection with the divine, this flips our outward sadness. A humility that comes from recognizing our own limitations conceals an inner joy, a contentment that springs from a deep trust in Allah.
That's a fascinating paradox. It's like he's saying that true joy isn't about ignoring the suffering in the world, but about finding a source of peace and contentment that transcends those external circumstances, a joy that emanates from the heart, a joy that is rooted in our connection with the divine.
And this joy, this contentment, is inextricably linked to taqwa. He says, as the night follows the day, you will endure and undergo no change. You will grow and generously spread your protective shade after you become a prop for the seven earths.
It's a beautiful image of transformation, of resilience. It's like he's saying that through this process of spiritual refinement, we become a source of strength and stability, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. We develop the capacity to hold the suffering of others, to offer compassion and support without being overwhelmed by it.
And this capacity for compassion, for empathy, is deeply connected to the purification of the heart. The Sheikh repeatedly emphasizes the importance of rooting out envy, arrogance, and judgment from our hearts. He reminds us that true righteousness isn't about looking down on others or feeling superior, but about recognizing the divine spark within every human being.
That reminds me of the story about the man who approached one of these people of the Lord, these individuals who have attained a state of spiritual maturity, seeking advice. This man had a habit of lecturing others, of offering unsolicited advice, but his words seemed to have little impact.
Ah, yes. And he was advised to stop lecturing and focus on purifying his own heart. The wise man told him, "You would not take our advice until you were given the order." It's a reminder that true transformation comes not from outward pronouncements or trying to fix others, but from the inner work of self-reflection and purification.
It's about recognizing that we can't truly help others until we've addressed the imbalances within ourselves. Our own spiritual growth is the foundation for everything else. But that doesn't mean withdrawing from the world or neglecting our responsibilities, right? The Sheikh talks about the importance of engaging with the world in a way that reflects our spiritual values.
Absolutely. He encourages us to seek knowledge, to work honestly, to be of service to others. He even criticizes those who give up working for the sake of appearing pious, calling it a form of hypocrisy. He reminds us that true sincerity is about aligning our intentions, ensuring that our actions, even our worldly pursuits, are rooted in a desire to please Allah.
So it's not about abandoning our roles in society, but about approaching them with a different mindset. It's about bringing that awareness of the divine into every aspect of our lives.
Precisely. He even talks about the importance of seeking out the company of the righteous, of surrounding ourselves with those who uplift and inspire us. But he also cautions against rushing into such company before we've done the necessary inner work.
He says, it is incumbent upon you to correct the bad aspects of your character before you keep company with the righteous. Otherwise, he warns, it would do more harm than good for you to be in their company. It's a reminder that we need to prepare ourselves to cultivate a certain level of spiritual maturity before we can fully benefit from the company of those who are further along on the path.
Exactly. It's like trying to plant a delicate flower in soil that hasn't been properly prepared. It's not going to thrive. We need to cultivate a certain level of inner purity of sincerity before we can fully absorb the wisdom and blessings that come from being in the presence of those who are closer to Allah.
And this cultivation of sincerity requires constant vigilance, a commitment to self-awareness and self-reflection. The Sheikh warns against the dangers of hypocrisy, of presenting a facade of piety while harboring darkness within.
He is incredibly direct about this, saying, "You are so perverse, O most wicked of the wicked. O stupid fool, any Jew or Christian is dearer to you than I am an impostor." Comes from Khorasan. He looks nice and clean on the outside and presents himself to you as an expert in Islamic jurisprudence, and he is dearer to you than I am. He's challenging us to examine our own biases, our tendency to judge by outward appearances rather than looking at the heart.
It's a powerful reminder to check our own intentions, to ensure that our actions are rooted in genuine sincerity, not in a desire for social approval or personal gain.
And this sincerity, this purity of intention is the foundation for true spiritual growth. The Sheikh beautifully summarizes this by saying, "Oh, you who lay claim to saintship, do not make such a pretentious claim, because it is a flag hoisted over your head. A herald announcing your arrival sainthood is a matter of deeds, not words. It is an inner building, and its structure is the connectedness of the heart. Its keys are faith, and the reality of it is something about which you do not have a clue."
So true spirituality isn't about titles or outward displays. It's about the inner transformation, the purification of the heart, the alignment of our will with the divine will. But how do we even begin to approach this alignment? Is it something we can achieve through sheer willpower?
It's not about forcing ourselves into submission. It's about surrendering to a power greater than ourselves, recognizing that our own efforts are limited. The Sheikh emphasizes the importance of seeking guidance, of finding a teacher who can illuminate the path.
He says, you must cling to the coattails of one of a special few, that handful of his servants whose lower selves have been tamed, and you must not seek anything trivial from them so they can make it possible for you to wear their clothes and stand in their presence. It's like he's saying that we need to find those individuals who embody the qualities we aspire to cultivate, to absorb their wisdom, to allow their light to illuminate our own path.
And he's very clear about approaching these guides with a pure heart, with a sincere desire for spiritual growth, not for worldly gain or personal advantage. He warns against seeking anything trivial from them. It's about recognizing the sacredness of the teacher-student relationship, honoring the lineage of wisdom that has been passed down through the generations.
And through this sincere seeking, through this surrender to guidance, we open ourselves to the transformative power of divine grace.
He beautifully describes this process, saying, if you remain steadfast, he may eventually draw you close, let you try on a few fragments of his sayings, and give you an insight into some of his spiritual states. It's like we're being initiated into a deeper understanding, a more profound level of awareness.
It's about moving beyond the intellectual understanding of spiritual concepts and experiencing them directly, feeling their truth in our hearts. But it's not just about personal enlightenment, right? The Sheikh talks about how this inner transformation is reflected in the way we engage with the outer world, particularly in our relationship to material possessions and wealth.
Absolutely. He reminds us that what is not in your possession is outside of your domain. It's a simple truth, but one that we often forget. He emphasizes that if something is truly meant for us, it will come to us even without our striving.
He even says, if it belongs to you, it will surely come to you even while you are asleep. It's a reminder to let go of our anxieties, to trust in the divine provision, to recognize that our sustenance ultimately comes from Allah, not from our own efforts.
And he cautions against the pitfalls of greed and materialism. He says, so why should you go to all this trouble to the detriment of your religion if only you would make a regular practice of listening in order to acquire knowledge, and of spending your time in the company of people devoted to religion, real experience, and the contemplation of that which is to come? It would soon be a simple matter for you to detach yourself from material means and the people who control them. He's urging us to reorient our priorities, to shift our focus from the accumulation of wealth to the cultivation of spiritual riches.
That's a powerful message, especially in a world that often equates success with material wealth and social status. It's a reminder that true wealth lies not in what we possess, but in the state of our hearts, in our connection with the divine. But this detachment from material possessions doesn't mean we should neglect our responsibilities or renounce our worldly duties, right? The Sheikh seems to advocate for a balanced approach and engagement with the world that is grounded in spiritual principles.
Exactly. He talks about the importance of working honestly, of using our skills and talents to benefit others, of being responsible stewards of the resources that Allah has entrusted to us. It's about recognizing that our worldly endeavors are not separate from our spiritual journey, but rather an opportunity to express our faith in action.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between detachment and engagement, between inner purification and outward action.
Yeah.
It's about bringing the light of our spiritual practice into every aspect of our lives, illuminating the world around us with the radiance of divine love and compassion. As we kind of come to the end of our deep dive into these Malfuzats, right?
All right.
I'm struck by how Sheikh Abdul Qadir Gilani weaves together like these profound spiritual concepts,
Right.
with very practical advice for everyday living. Like, he doesn't just talk about, lofty ideals. He gives us like tangible tools and practices to help us integrate those ideals into our lives.
That's what makes his teaching so enduring,
Yeah.
so relevant even today.
Yeah.
He addresses the human condition and all its complexities, offering guidance for navigating, the challenges of this world while staying connected to the divine.
And a key element of this this integration of the spiritual into the mundane is the concept of sincerity or ikhlo. It's something that the Sheikh returns to again and again throughout the Malfuzat. It's like the thread that ties everything together.
Ikhlu is the heart of true worship. It's about purifying our intentions, ensuring that our actions, our words, even our thoughts are aligned with the sincere desire to please Allah.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of ego, of the desire for recognition or reward, and surrendering to the pure flow of divine love.
He uses this powerful analogy describing sincerity as a plot of land and deeds as the surrounding walls. He
Right.
says, the walls are subject to alteration and change, but not so. The ground only upon dutiful devotion can a building be firmly based. It's like he's saying that sincerity is the bedrock, the foundation upon which the entire edifice of our spiritual practice rests.
Exactly. Our actions, our outward practices are like those walls. They can be impressive, even beautiful, but without a solid foundation of sincerity, they're susceptible to collapse.
Yeah.
Taqwa, that dutiful devotion to Allah becomes the ground, upon which we build that foundation.
And this cultivation of sincerity is a process, a journey of refinement and purification. It's not like a one-time achievement,
Right.
but rather an ongoing practice of aligning our intentions with the divine will.
And it's not always easy. The Sheikh acknowledges that his way of speaking can be challenging, even jarring at times. He doesn't sugarcoat the truth. He pushes us to confront our own shortcomings, to break through the veils of self-delusion and hypocrisy.
There's that passage where he says, if you wish for success, you must endure with patience the hammer blows of my way of speaking when my ecstasy overtakes me. I cannot see you when the temper of my innermost being is aroused, the temper of my sincerity. I cannot see your face.
Huh.
It's like he's a spiritual blacksmith, using his words to forge us into stronger, more resilient beings.
He's not afraid to use strong language, because he knows that sometimes we need a jolt to wake us up from the slumber of complacency.
Yeah.
He wants us to become the best versions of ourselves, to shed the layers of ego and pretense that keep us from experiencing the fullness of divine love.
And he constantly reminds us of the fleeting nature of this worldly life, urging us to prioritize our spiritual growth, our connection with Allah. He says, open your eyes and take notice of what is in front of you. The squads of punishment and chastisement have come to get you. Woe unto you, O stupid fool. You will very soon be dead. All that you are now involved in must fade away and be scattered. It's a sobering reminder of our mortality, a call to live with intentionality, to make choices that align with our ultimate purpose.
He wants us to live with awareness of our inevitable return to Allah, to recognize that this life is a preparation for the next, and he emphasizes that true success isn't measured by worldly accomplishments, but by the state of our hearts, the purity of our intentions.
And even in the face of death, of the unknown that lies beyond this life, the Sheikh offers a source of comfort, a reminder that we're not alone. He speaks beautifully about the grace and mercy of Allah, saying, glory be to the one who treats you all so kindly. O you who like to have fun without ever taking notice.
It's a reminder that even in our forgetfulness, in our moments of distraction, the divine is always present, always watching over us, guiding us back to the path. He doesn't abandon us, even when we stray.
And for those who are seeking to deepen their connection with Allah, who are yearning for that experience of divine love, the Sheikh emphasizes the importance of finding a spiritual guide, someone who has already traversed the path, who can illuminate the way.
He says, enter houses by the proper doors, enter by the doors of the sheikhs, by the doors of those whose whole existence has become absorbed in obedient service to Allah. They have become formless contents. They have come to be the boon companions of the house of nearness to the Lord. They have come to be the guests of the king.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it?
Right.
These spiritual masters, these sheikhs, have become so immersed in the divine that they've transcended their individual identities. They become vessels for divine grace.
And he describes the intimacy they share with Allah in such beautiful terms, saying, they are offered food on one story of his palace and offered rest and relaxation on another. Robes of honor of many kinds are provided for them to change into. He takes them on a tour of his kingdom, his earths and his heavens, his mysteries and his intimate knowledge.
It's a glimpse into the possibilities that await those who dedicate themselves to this path, who purify their hearts, who surrender their egos, who make their entire lives an act of worship.
And this path, this journey to divine nearness, isn't just about personal enlightenment. It's about becoming a source of benefit for others, about spreading the light of wisdom and compassion in the world.
The Sheikh talks about how his own life and work are dedicated to serving Allah, to guiding others toward the truth. He doesn't seek fame or recognition. His focus is solely on pleasing his Lord.
And even in his final days, he displays incredible humility. He reminds his sons that he's basking in the knowledge of Allah and urges them to die in relation to me, then you may come to your senses. He's pointing them and us towards the ultimate reality of the truth that transcends this worldly life. He wants us to realize that our true identity is not found in our individual egos, but in our connection with the divine.
He leaves us with this powerful reminder. The law may be subject to change, but knowledge is unchanging. The law may be abrogated, but knowledge is never abrogated. Allah's knowledge is not altered by his law. It's a call to seek out that knowledge which illuminates the heart. The wisdom that guides us towards truth and authenticity, the understanding that deepens our connection with the divine.
And what better way to embark on this journey of seeking than by immersing ourselves in the word of the Sheikh, by delving deeper into the Malfuzat, by contemplating his teachings and allowing them to transform our hearts.
It's been an incredible journey exploring these utterances with you. I feel like we've been given a glimpse into the heart of Islamic spirituality, a roadmap for navigating this life with grace, wisdom, and a deep connection to Allah.
I agree, and I hope our listeners feel inspired to continue this exploration, to make these teachings a part of their daily lives, to experience the transformative power of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Gilani's wisdom.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one final quote from the Sheikh. He says, "O Allah, improve us all. O Allah, make us righteous and make us instruments of righteousness. Let all our needs be left to you, and let our devotion be to you alone."
Beautiful. May we all strive to embody the sincerity and devotion reflected in those words.
Until next time, may peace and blessings be upon you.